Hey, chaotic crew, it's Brian back again with another spicy deck tech. This time, I'm going to go over one of the decks I have actually in paper, and it's probably one of the decks I'm better known for in my inner circle. If you ask any of my friends, hey, what's a memorable deck of Brian's? It's probably this Transformers deck. 5-color Transformers. I have all of the ones from Brothers War, and we'll dig right into them. But I figured, we'd start off with a little bit of a mystery. Who's the commander going to be for this one, right? I've seen people do, Ramos, Dragon Engine, which gets you, plus and counters and the mana to cast your Transformers. I've seen a couple other commanders, but the one I'm going to go with today, just because I think it's the strongest, is going to be Joda, the Unifier. And I call this deck More Than Meets the Guy. If you don't get that reference, then maybe this deck isn't for you, but I think it's super fun. Really a great time. You're just playing the game, cascading essentially into your Transformers, because what happens is Joda's ability, the top effect, first of all, is just icing on the cake, because it makes legendary creatures you control get +X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. All the Transformers you are playing are legendary, so they're always going to get buffed. So that's always going to be beneficial. And then Joda the Unifier's second ability, the main one that you would run him as a commander for, is whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. So it's essentially legendary cascade, right? From spells you cast from your hand, because you cast them without paying its mana cost, and you put the rest in the bottom of your library. So what really makes Joda the best commander, I think, for Transformers is all these Transformers cards have More Than Meets the Eye. Their ability that lets you cast them on the backside for a lower mana value most of the time. There's a couple here that are a bit more costly for that, but typically the goal of this deck is you play out Joda, and then you're going to cast one or two of these Transformers as their More Than Meets the Eye cost. Like, for instance, Starscream costs 3 mana for the More Than Meets the Eye cost, but then when you get the Cascade trigger, you're actually looking at the top right of the card, if I can move my mouse there, the top right, where that's their mana value, right? So you are paying less for more value when you get these Transformers on the battlefield. So just a very fun deck all around. Let's dive right into these Transformers and what they do. Some of them synergize better with the others than than the rest, but I just want to go over them a bit. RC Sharpshooter, she has first strike, 2/2. You pay 1 to remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters. It deals that much damage to a creature, and then you convert or transform RC. The backside of her is just a 2/2. And every backside of the Transformers cards have this ability called Living Metal. And basically that means that it's only a creature when it's your turn. It's a vehicle, but you don't have to crew it. It's just a creature when it's your turn. When it's not your turn, not a creature. That's important because that's lost me some games. I thought I held up some blockers, but they were actually transformed creatures. So definitely something to keep an eye on when you're playing this deck. Whenever you cast a spell that targets one or more creatures or vehicles you control, put that many +1/+1 counters on RC. And then you transform her. So RC kind of, fuels her front side with her backside. You'll see that a lot with the Transformers cards, is you don't really need to have too much synergy with them because they'll usually fuel their own game plan. But I would say RC is probably a bit one of the the lesser powerful ones. Blaster's really good. He gives your artifact creatures that are non-tokens and vehicles modular 1. So when you cast your other Transformers, they come in with a 1/1 counter. When they die, you can move it to other artifact creatures you control. And then when you put when you put those modular counters on Blaster, you convert him. The backside, he's actually not even a creature, he's just an artifact. Comes in with 3 +1/+1 counters because it has modular 3, and then you can pay some, move some +1/+1 counters, and then if you have no more counters on Blaster, you transform him back. So it costs 5 mana, but you're only paying 3 for the backside, and then you're getting a cascade of 4 or less. So definitely, really good for Joda. Blitzwing here costs 6, and you only have to pay 4 for him, so definitely really good in that sense, right? At the beginning of your instep, target opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. If no life is lost this way, then you transform Blitzwing. So kind of cool there. And then Blitzwing Adaptive Assailant, a 3/5. Beginning of combat, you choose flying or indestructible at random. It Blitzwing gains that ability. So you can usually hit it to deal combat damage, and then when you do that, you convert Blitzwing. Definitely good there. Probably the front side's the best just because Joda's buffing all your Transformers, right? Your opponents are going to be losing a lot of life, and then you're able to get even more damage done to them. Cyclonus, one of my favorite Transformers. Flying 2/5. When it deals combat damage, you connive, so you draw and then discard. If you discard a non-land, it gets a 1/1 counter. And then if Cyclonus' power is 5 or greater, you convert it. And this is what makes it really good, because your commander's buffing up all your legendary creatures, right? So it doesn't need to have 5+1/+1 counters, it just needs to have 5 power or greater, right? So typically you're able to transform Cyclonus a lot easier than usual, and the backside is so good because it's flying 5/5. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you transform it, and then if you do, there's an additional beginning phase after this phase. So you get an extra untap, upkeep, and draw. So you untap all your lands, you're drawing a card. It's really, really good. So Cyclonus is definitely one of the best Transformers in here. Flame War, Brash Veteran. You sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on it, and then you convert it as a sorcery, or you can pay 1, discard your hand, put all exile cards you own with intel counters on them into your hand. This is another one that sort of feeds itself because you get intel counters on cards with the backside of Flame War. It's a 2/1 Menace Death Touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, which Menace Death Touch is going to let it do a lot, you exile that many cards from the top of your library face down and put an intel counter on each of them, then you transform him. So sort of you play it on the backside, which is great because you want to play these, on the backside most of the time, right? 2 mana to play for a 3 mana transformer, but you get the backside, then you deal damage, and then it transforms, and now you have, ability to, if you run out of cards in hand, Flame War can help refill that. Just a nice little thing to do there. Goldbug, Humanity's Ally. Another reason I think Joda's one of the better commanders for Transformers is because Goldbug actually really cares about humans. It's prevent all combat damage. It'll be dealt to attacking humans you control, which is great because your commanders are going to be big, want to be slapping in, kill people with commander damage. And whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you convert Goldbug. So it's actually really good with your commander because the backside, human spells you control can't be countered. And whenever Goldbug and at least 1 human attack, draw a card and convert Goldbug. So Goldbug's one of the few Transformers you want to have out before Joda's out. And then when you attack with both of them, you're going to draw a card, and then you convert Goldbug, and he's going to prevent all damage dealt to attacking humans you control. So Joda's not going to be able to die through combat damage, and then you get, can cast your second spell later that turn. Also, when you cast your second spell, it's great because you can, say Goldbug and Joda have been out for a turn, you cast a spell, you get the Cascade trigger from Joda, and then you convert Goldbug, and then you can attack in and then reconvert Goldbug. So a lot of probably a lot of the Transformers don't have a ton of synergy, like I said, but Goldbug definitely does. Jetfire, 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer. Remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from among artifacts you control. Target player adds that much colorless mana. That mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. You can do some politics here, but most often than not, you may be removing 1 or 2 to get a little extra mana. Having a 3/4 flyer, or just a flyer in general, as a blocker is really nice. The backside, another 3/4 flyer, and you can pay 3 mana to convert it, and then put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Megatron is a strong card. Your opponents cast spells during combat, which this is a very combat-heavy deck, right? And it's not just during your combat either, so it's any combat. So no combat tricks from your opponents, and they can't deal with your combat tricks, right? So definitely very good there. And the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron. If you do, add a colorless for each 1 life your opponents have lost. And then the backside is a 4/5. Whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact, which we've got tons of them in here. When you do, it deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value, which, like we said, are higher than we're paying to cast these cards, and deals that to target creature. If XX damage would be dealt, instead, it deals to the creature controller, and then you convert Megatron. So super cool there. Optimus Prime Hero. He bolsters 1 at all your end steps, so you're getting +1/+1 counters. You can tell that there's a few cards that care about +1/+1 counters here, and Optimus really sort of embodies that. And then when he dies, you return it to the battlefield, convert it. So really cool because you want him to start out on the backside. 6/8 with trample, and when you attack, you bolster 2. And if the chosen creature gains trample until end of turn, and then when it deals combat damage, you transform him, right? which is nice. And then if someone board wipes, you just get Optimus Prime back. It's definitely, you know, great to have and puts a lot of +1/+1 counters on some of your weaker creatures. Prow, Stoic, Strategist, really cool. When it attacks, you exile up to one other tapped creature or vehicle. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. So you can do this to deal with your opponent's cards or even your own, because when a player plays a card exiled with Prow, you draw a card and convert Prow. So it can be a way to help draw cards, you know, hold really big threats that are tapped on your opponent's side of the board, or key combo pieces, right? Make them have to recast it again, and gets you some card draw. And then whenever another creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 1/1 counter on Prow. And if it's the second time this ability has resolved, convert it. So you're getting to cast a spell with Joda, and then you get a free spell. So it's, you know, almost always going to get a +1/+1 counter and convert. And then when it converts, you get to, you know, simply attack with it and then exile a creature. So it can definitely be nice. Ratchet is neat because it has lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you may convert Ratchet. When you do, return target artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you gain this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Now, they balance this card out by having only 2 power and lifelink, but with Joda out, he's going to have 5, 6, 7 power, so you can actually get a lot of your really strong artifacts here back out, which is really nice. And then it also has lifelink on the back. It's a 1/4. Whenever one or more non-token artifacts are put into your graveyard, convert it, and it only triggers once each turn. So whether you're sacrificing with Megatron or it dies to removal, you know, when your artifacts, you get to convert it, and then you can get it back with Ratchet. So it's really nice. Slicer, super fun card, has its own commander deck, but this is a little bit, you know, more tame, I would say. But you're going to be having a double striking Slicer. It's going to be a 5/6, you know, a 7/8, a really strong card that's going to be hitting hard on your turn, and then it's going to keep hitting your opponent's hard as it goes around the table, which is really awesome. And then the backside also going to, you know, have an easier time getting through later in the game because it's going to be a lot stronger. So it could definitely be, you know, do lots of damage there. Soundwave, he's one of the ones, this and Cyclonus are the 2 main ones that are more expensive on the more than meets the eye side, so not exactly ideal for that, but super cool because whenever creature tokens you control deal combat damage, you exile an instant or sorcery card equal to the damage dealt from the graveyard. Typically, you know, you're only going to get like 1 or 2 drops because the only tokens really have in this deck are the ones that Soundwave creates, but we'll get to that in a second. Those are removal spells or ramp spells typically, so you like doing that. It's not bad at all, and you can cast those copies without paying its mana cost, and then you transform Soundwave. But you're almost always playing them on the back first. When you cast a spell with odd mana value, you get a 3/3 token with Menace and Death Touch, and when you cast him an even spell, you get a 2/2 with Flying and Hexproof. So both are really solid, and then either one you get, you transform Soundwave, and then you deal damage, cast a spell, and then you flip it back over, repeat the process. So Soundwave's a pretty fun card. Starscream, great card in this deck. You're putting him on the backside. Flying Menace Haste for 3 mana, and when it deals combat damage, if there's no Monarch, that player becomes the Monarch. So you're making someone else the Monarch, right? And then the next turn, you're going to be able to probably attack them again, right? Because Flying Menace Haste is really hard to avoid. Whenever you become the Monarch, you convert Starscream, right? So you'll become the Monarch probably the next turn, and whenever you draw a card, if you're the Monarch, target opponent loses 2 life, and then whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to you, you convert Starscream and make it easier to get the Monarchy back. So really cool there. Last Transformer of the deck. I know we've been going over these guys, but it's really important because these are super cool cards, and we want to make sure we go over all of them. But I'll go over a little bit over the rest of the deck in a second, but Ultra Magnus, last Transformer to go over. It's cost 7 mana normally, but 5 mana for that more than meets the eye cost. So you're really getting a big discount and more cascade value off of Joda. Ward 2, 7/7. When it attacks, you may put an artifact from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. If you do, convert Ultra Magnus into combat, which is really cool. And then the backside of 4/7 with haste, right? So you're usually getting this on the backside first. When it attacks, attacking creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If those creatures have total power 8 or greater, you convert it. So it's really great. You won't get the attack trigger when you convert it, but it'll turn from a 4/7 into a 7/7 with Ward 2, so a lot more dangerous, and you typically have your commander out, so it's going to be even stronger. Alright, let's go over the rest of the deck. Let's start with this ramp package. We've got, some of this is pseudo-ramp, like Onric here. Legendary Artifact. It's really sort of the theme we're going for with this deck, is Legendary Artifacts. And whenever he attacks, you get to pretty much cast spells for free, just paying life instead of the mana value. So it can be really good to play first before Joda, and then cast Joda, and then get a free spell and a free cascade because you're casting it from your hand. So really cool, but most of this is just low artifacts, Birds of Paradise, Delighted Halfling, Relic of Legends. You know, Cultivate and Kodama's Reach are really important to help mana fix you, too, which is really nice. We have Urza, Lord Protector, not Lurza, and he makes all your artifacts. Instant and sorceries cost 1 less, which is really neat. Dwyra, Ageless Innovator, super great in this deck because we run a lot of artifact lands, so she's going to be able to put those on the battlefield for free, but also, when she gets more and more of those counters on her, she's going to be able to put your Transformers in the battlefield for free too, which is really neat as well. Dihada, kind of a bit of a, jack of all trades in this deck. Very, very good card in here because it's going to give your commander protection because it gives it +2, gives it Vigilance, Lifelink, Indestructible. -3 is giving you not only card draw and ramp, but is helping you thin out your deck as well. I'm typically not using -11, but if your opponent lets you get there, it's just a win the game card too, so definitely a great card here. Lots of ramp because we definitely want to be getting our commander out pretty early on and being able to, get some good value off of him early before he's removed, right? That's the biggest issue with this deck, I would say, is that you're very, relying on your commander a lot. And it's definitely a bit difficult sometimes to have this deck really pop off if your commander's getting removed. So we do actually have a lot of card draw options in the deck because you don't want to be running out of gas anytime when you're playing this deck. I included Bolas the Citadel because, you're really looking at the top card of your library, and I would say that's card draw. You have more access to those cards in your hand. Plus, it's a legendary, so it's, getting off your commander, it's proccing your commander. Esper Sentinel is good card draw. Dwyra is great. Lashiel, Mystic Forge, Shanit. Shanit can kill you. I have died to my own Shanit before because it's not a May. You just draw a card and you lose a life whenever you cast spells, and whenever you have Jodah out, you're doing that twice, so that's important. Tetsin is actually putting artifacts into the graveyard, and you choose one of them that you put there and you put in your hand. Typically not using the backside of Tetsin, but is a fun little card to have there as well. Vega draws you cards when you cast stuff with Jodah. And the Great Hinge, always solid. Your commander's buffing everything, so you're going to have, only going to be casting this for 2 or 3 mana every time, so it's pretty solid there. Really, like I said, it was important that we keep our commander alive, so we have a lot of protection here. We have a couple counters because we're in blue. Always want to run counters. Boros Charm can either give something double strike, which could end the game, or, give your stuff indestructible. Heroic Intervention's good. K9, you get it off your commander typically, and when it's untapped, other legendary creatures have Ward 1, and then you can also, if you're trying to close the game out, can make a legendary creature unblockable this turn, so definitely nice there. Positive Heroes helps mana fix you and can protect your commander down the line. Rada Dropic is fantastic with this commander because, if it dies, you just get a 2/2 copy of it, and it's it helps make it stick even more. So we look at there, and then Teferi's Protection, of course, is important. Removal, we don't have a ton of removal. Pretty much a lot of the main removal we're going to be having is for, they're having to block our creatures, honestly, and they're not going to be able to, so that's definitely tough. Urza's Ruinous Blast, though, can help us really put ourselves ahead. We have Cyclonic Rift and Urza's Ruinous Blast as our 2, board wipes in here. You can put a couple others if you really want to, but Urza's Ruinous Blast is so good because you exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. And since most of the stuff in our deck is legendary, sure, they may keep their commanders and a couple other cards. They're losing all their, artifact ramp, any enchantments they have out. Now, they are printing more and more legendary cards, so as they do that, this card becomes worse. But honestly, even then, this is essentially a one-sided board wipe, and you are really losing out if you don't play Urza's Ruinous Blast, so I would definitely be doing that. We also have a couple cards that tutor. Instrument of the Bards, definitely a really cool card, and you really want to play it out early game, but even towards the late game, it could be nice. You put these counters on it, and then you can pay 4 mana, search your library for any creature card with mana value equal to the number of counters on it. If it's a legendary card, you get a treasure, and you put the card in your hand, excuse me. This has won me games, right? I've gotten like 5 or 6 counters on here, and then I grab a Slicer or something else, and I can just win the game with it pretty easily. Inventor's Fair also, we're going to have lots of artifacts here, so we're definitely going to be able to search for whatever we need. And then Oswald Filament are so good because you sacrifice an artifact, search your library for an artifact with mana value 1 more than that, and you put it on the battlefield, so sort of like a birthing pod effect for artifacts, and it's so good. It's a legendary card. You get it with Jodah. Moving up to finishers here, we have a few. Basically, Alibu is one of our main finishers. She gives our creatures haste, which is important, And then whenever one of our artifact creatures that control attack, it's going to deal a ton of damage because we're going to have a lot of artifacts on the board. Hammer of Perforos also gives our creatures haste, right? Primeval's Glorious Rebirth paired with one of these two cards just wins us the game, right? Because typically we're churning through our deck pretty fast here, and we're going to get board wiped, potentially, right? And if we don't have one of our protection pieces, we're getting board wiped, and we're going to have a bunch of legendary cards in our graveyard. And so we're going to get Primordial's Glorious Rebirth, and if one of these two is also in our graveyard, we get those back as well, and all our creatures are going to have haste, and they're all going to be super powerful. It's just going to be a lot. And Wake the Past is the same thing except artifacts, so really this is practically the main way we win the game, right? Joda buffing our creatures gives us sort of that win condition in the command zone, which is really nice. Now, we do have Bolus of Citadel, so you could also add in like Aetherflux Reservoir or Sensei's Divining Top, as well as the Reality Chip. I run those in my personal build, but you know, some people find that really mean, and I just wanted to show you, you know, typically you can pretty much win with combat, and not a lot of people see it coming. So definitely a really cool build here. The last thing I really wanted to go over is this land package. We're running all of the artifact lands, which can be dangerous, including the double mana ones that come in tapped that are indestructible. Having most of our, you know, artifact lands or lands be artifacts, it can be dangerous, especially if someone has Merciless Eviction or Farewell and they can exile them all. Not ideal. Or make us sacrifice all our artifacts. So that could be devastating for sure. But this deck is really more supposed to be fun, right? So if that happens, that happens. But there's going to be games where we blow everyone else out too. So that's something to note. It's a really fun deck to play. And I say let's just get into the playtesting. So the thing about playtesting with this deck is we can't do it a whole lot, right? The hardest thing about playtesting, it's hard to know what other players have. And typically they're going to be killing our commander as soon as they get a chance. So really for this deck, I want to make sure we can get out our commander and then the next turn play a card. And if our commander doesn't survive, that's okay. We can still play cards and whatever. As long as we're getting enough mana to get the commander out on turn 4 or 5 is pretty much what we want to be doing with this deck. But we can just go into it and see how it plays. This opening hand is pretty decent. We have 3 lands, 2 of them are tapped, and we have a Timberriver Expanse that helps us get to one of our basics, so I say we go for it. We've got 2 blue cards in hand, so I would probably go with an island here for Terramorphic Expanse. So let's go ahead and start turn 1. Another tap land, not bad. Let's go ahead and Terramorphic Expanse and grab an island. And we will grab an island and then move to our second turn. And we draw K9, which is honestly kind of good for us because we're going to play another tap land here. Enters tapped, and then we'll pay 1 for K9. And that's going to make it so that it's harder to kill our creatures when they enter the battlefield, right? So definitely good there, and can also make them indestructible. Next turn, we're on turn 3. Okay, this is also really good. We have an Arcane Denial. Now, we could play a tap land, which would... and you know, that would be nice, but honestly, I want to ramp out this Commander Sphere. So I'm going to play this Ancient Den untapped, and then we're going to tap 3 for the Commander Sphere. And that way, that means we can play Cyclonus next turn, which very good one to have when, I know you can't see the card too well over there, but very nice to have before Jordan gets on the battlefield because of that more than meets the eye cost is 7 instead of the 4 mana cost. So that's really what I'm going with here. And so we'll go into turn 4, and we get a Birds of Paradise too. We don't have another mana, unfortunately, but we'll play that Goldmire Bridge tapped, and then we'll pay 4 for Cyclonus, sort of help things get along and move along here. And then we will go to turn 5, and we get another tap land, which is nice. So we can cast our commander, right? We have white, red, black, blue, and green. So we can cast our commander here, which is nice. It'll have Ward 1 to make it harder to kill, and we're also going to be drawing and discarding a card. So I say we go for it. Typically, we want to play the deck. If it dies, it dies. We still have Cyclonus and a few other cards in hand that'll really help us out here. So if we play Joda, we're going to attack with Cyclonus. We're going to draw a card. It's a Cascading Cataract, which is nice, under land. I say we take out we discard Birds of Paradise. We give Cyclonus the +1/+1 counter. And then because its power is now, you know, 3 plus 1, 2, 3 is 6. Its power is more than 5, so we're actually going to be able to transform it into the other piece, and then that's going to be great. So honestly, next turn, let's just play it out. Ooh, That's a good card. So we'll probably play Ratchet here first. And we're just going to tap 4, 2, 3, 4, and we'll see what we get. Ratchet. All right. So another thing to buff our creatures up even more. We have Arcane Denial out, and we're going to get an untapped step here. So honestly, this is a great start for this deck. I would say the only thing it's really missing is card draw, but if we can, you know, cascade into some of our card draw options, we're in a really great shape here to keep Joda on the field and really take the game over. So let's try the next game. All right, next game here, we have Ancient Den, Mountain, so 2 lands, both of our counters, which is funny, and then Dwyra. Now, this is really tough. We have no ramp and no blue, which is really rough. If we had blue, this would be better. I'm going to say we're going to mulligan this. So let's do that. Okay, 2 lands again, but we have a Soul Ring, which is nice. So we can get Cyclonus out and start drawing cards. So I say this is a keeper. We'll definitely keep this one. Let's go ahead and start turn 1 with an island. I say we start with the path and go from there. Turn 2, a Spire of Industry, one of the better lands to get here. It's going to give us any mana that we need, so I say we play that, right? And play the Soul Ring, and then we can go ahead and cast Lasheel, which is really, really nice for us, right? Prevent all combat damage we dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control, and whenever one or more artifact creatures in the battlefield, we draw a card. So we're already poised next turn, right? To get an island out, and we're going to cast Cyclonus and draw a card, which gets us a Mystic Forge. Nice. We could have also played Slicer to start some chaos, right? We're going to start passing it around. You could also do that. But yeah, both great options, and now we're really hitting the ball rolling here. Even if we, you know, don't draw into more lands, we now have 3 to get Teton to get more stuff into our hand. If we even don't get into our commander, we're drawing cards. Potentially get Dihada out as soon as we get a white or black or red mana source, right? So once we start doing that, we can recover from this. We don't have to play our commander out just yet. This deck, you know, because we're expecting our commander to die pretty early, can last without it as well. So definitely good to know. And people are going to be saving the remover for your commander. So even if it comes out later, it actually might even be better, right? Because they'll have to use the removal on other players' cards or your own, in which case then you play your commander and can potentially play something the same turn your commander comes out. So honestly, really good. Let's do another one just because I don't like to showcase playtest with Soul Ring. One more should do it. And 1 lander here. That's going to be a no-go. Do have a 2 mana rock and a 2 3 mana rocks, and then the Great Hinge. So, you know what? I say we risk it for the biscuit here. That's what I say. Excuse me. If we have a opponent with green mana, we risk it for the biscuit. And so turn 1, hey, when we are rewarded. We do run 37 lands in here, so only having 1 in hand means we're probably going to draw another one, but it is very risky to keep that hand. And so we could do that. We'll have a good run here. Let's see what happened if we had mulliganed. 3 lands, not bad. 3 different colors. So yeah, we could run with this one too. Let's see how that goes. So turn 1, a 4th land. We'll start with the tap bridge. Turn 2, Sakura Tri-Belter. So yeah, we're actually off to the races here already. Sakura Tri-Belter. We don't have red or black. It looks like or blue. I say we probably go with trying to get, oh, we see we do have black, excuse me. I say we try to go for Soundwave here, so we'll go ahead and sack it for the blue, for an island. And then turn 3 comes around. We get one of Wake the Past, which is really good. Let's go with this 4. And then we don't really want to cast Soundwave from the front, so we're going to do Ratchet. And it's going to be good there. And then next turn, okay, we got Shanid, which isn't ideal because we don't have red still. Yeah, this is where it's tough, but we'll play Soundwave on the backside. So the next time we cast a spell, we're going to be doing stuff, and then hopefully go from there. We do have Ratchet as well as a good blocker. No one's really hopefully doing anything to us. Mystic Forge is not ideal, but we can tap 4 for Mystic Forge and see what's on top. It is a Ratadrabic. which I would normally... Oh, and sorry, excuse me. That also transforms Soundwave, and we get a token. It was even, so we get the Laserbeak token. And then we could draw Ratchet, which I think actually... I think it's worth it to keep it on top, even though we really want that red mana source. But... You know, typically at this point in the game, one of our opponents is going to have an instant or sorcery that can ramp or even card draw, and I think that's important too here. So I think we'll just do that and go from there. But this might be one where we're clawing back from behind here to try and get our Joda. But I think this is still a good showing for the deck. It can still operate, even if you're not getting those cards that help mana fix you or any of the ways to really put pressure on the board. We're typically going to be either super dominant or in a position like this where we don't look too scary until it's too late. So I definitely think we're in a good slot here to do really well in the game. Well, that's going to do it for this deck tech. It's been really fun. Again, this is one of my most fun decks I have, more than meets the guy. And I want you to know that even though it is a bit expensive, you can definitely make a lot of cuts here. A lot of budget includes to make things easier. A lot of the cards are budget. I think what makes this most expensive is probably, you know, cards like Cyclonic Rift, Teferi's Protection. Most of these Transformers with these printings are very cheap, right? So you're not spending a ton of money here. You're not spending a ton of money on, you know, cards like Oswald Fiddlebender, the Dwyras. Dihada's gotten a little bit, you know, expensive, but most of these cards are fairly cheap. It's just, you know, really the strong hitters that I've put in here that do add a lot of expense to the deck. But, you know, Great Hinge is another one of them. So you can definitely take those out, and this can still be a super fun, super strong deck because Joda's just that good of a commander. And I may actually get a proxy made where I make him like Unicron or another one of the Transformers. You know, until they print a 5-color Transformers commander, that's what's going to happen. But until now, I'm going to stick with Joda. I hope you do too. Let me know what you're going to put in the deck if you're deciding to build it, or if you even have one yourself. What are some good plays that you wanna put in? Just let me know in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter at RedFalcon207, and yeah, if you like it, leave a comment and subscribe. But otherwise, I'll see you next time, and you all have a great day. Thanks. Bye.